Heard on Thursdays with Nikki is about to go live online. Catch HOT, the iconic radio show that made Philippine FM radio talk, every Thursday on the Monster.
Streaming video on the Monster Facebook page at RX931, the Monster YouTube channel at RX931, and twitch.tv/Monster RX931.
You heard on Thursday's host, Nikki Porter. Stand by and enjoy the program.
Hey, good evening, monsters. Yes, welcome to the show that made Philippine FM radio talk. That's heard on Thursdays, and I'm your host this evening, Nikki Porter. So let's talk real quick, right? Dysfunctional family dynamics. Something most of us are familiar with. Maybe you're not familiar with the term itself, but yes, every family has its quirks, right? And most of the time, that's deeply rooted from those that came before us. So generational patterns, they repeat themselves from one generation to the next until one generation decides to break the cycle. And when it comes to raising children, more people are becoming aware that they don't have to follow the parenting style they were raised with. They can break the cycle and do it their own way. Our guest tonight is certified peaceful parent coach Jaymie Lacsamana. She is a dedicated mother of two in their tweens, a medical technologist by profession, and a passionate peaceful parent coach who advocates for compassionate and empathic parenting in Singapore. With a deep commitment to nurturing the future generations, Jaymie has become a trusted resource for parents seeking guidance in fostering strong and loving connections with their children. Her mission through her coaching is to inspire parents to build trusting relationships with their kids while fostering essential life skills and emotional intelligence. While based in Singapore, Jaymie Lacsamana provides invaluable support to parents seeking to navigate the complex journey of parenthood with grace, empathy, and understanding. Many of us who probably were not raised in that environment as well. So with her insights and compassionate guidance, she's helping parents lay the foundation for a more harmonious and loving future for their families. So heard on Thursdays, let's welcome to the show peaceful parent coach Jaymie Lacsamana Wong. Where is the mouse? Jaymie Lacsamana Wong.
Hi, good evening. And thanks for inviting me, Nikki.
Thank you very much for taking the time this evening. I know it's kind of what do you call this? It's a bit of an interesting topic for sure, and I'm really glad that you can join us and talk to us about what this actually is. So before we actually get into that, I haven't been in Singapore in like over 10 years. So or almost 10 years rather. So what's it been like, living there? How long have you been there? And what is it like? Why can't we can we live vicariously through you?
Yeah, well, I've been staying in Singapore for the last 14 years. I migrated to Singapore in 2009.
Okay.
So, yeah, and when I migrated to Singapore, I was still single. And after 2 years of working here, I worked in a private hospital, and then I met my husband. And after that, we got married and I had 2 kids. And currently, I'm still working as a medical technologist here. A lot has changed in Singapore for the last 14 years since I came. There are more Filipinos living here now. And surprisingly, there are a lot of Filipinos married to Singaporeans like me. And a lot of my clients who come to me are actually Filipinos married to Chinese Singaporeans, Singaporeans who are of Malay descent. And I find that the social landscape has changed a lot, as well as there are now a lot of attractions in Singapore as well. Like, you should come and see the Gardens by the Bay and the new fountain at the Jewel at Changi Airport.
Yeah, definitely. It was not there yet the last time I was there. So for sure, I would love to come back. And so for you, you married a Singaporean. So what is that like in terms of dynamics, in terms of parenting, actually? Is it different? How does it differ?
for me, it feels more difficult because instead of just having to deal with the usual um, parenting differences, like because he came from a different background and as well as I did, we also had to deal with cultural differences,
Right.
and we had to deal with um, different ethnicities and what it's like to be. He's a Catholic. I'm a Catholic. He's not. He's a Buddhist, and so we have to um, deal with a lot of issues as well. So when we got married, we had to talk about things that we wanted when we start a family, like what are the values that we bring into the family, and as well as how do we want to raise the children. Because I feel like this is a good start for couples, not only for those who are going to marry into another race or going into a relationship like mine,
Mm-hmm.
but generally, when you get married, you have to talk about certain things that you want to bring into the marriage and in terms of having a family, because it's like marrying not just your culture, but everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, that's true. It's like you are carrying so much more than just yourself, because like your upbringing really does influence, how you two will spend your lives together and also build a family together. So, is this something that you also help Filipinos who are married to foreign nationals also in your coaching?
Yes, I do. And I do. A lot of my clients that come to me actually didn't have this kind of conversations. So when they have kids, uh, they don't know which direction they have to go to. Like, because one side came from a very relaxed type of parenting, and the other side came from a very strict type of parenting.
Right.
So they don't know where to meet in the middle, how to compromise, and what are the values that they want to bring into the table when they want to parent their kids. And so the problems start from there. There are certain issues like how do you deal with your kids when they do something, they make a mistake, and what punishments do you give? Do you even consider giving out punishments?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
how do you deal with your children when they become teenagers? How do you deal with their issues? So a lot of that stems from the fact that they didn't have time to just sit down and just talk about what are the things that they want when they're starting a family. So it's
Yeah.
good to have that conversation. When I'm coaching them, I always encourage them to do that because it's never too late to just sit down and talk to your spouse about it.
Yeah, definitely. So that there's some more cohesive way or strategy into like child rearing while they're young, before they become their angsty teenage selves as
Mhm.
well and become a
Yeah.
little bit more rebellious. So, before you found out about peaceful parenting, did you already have your kids? Did you
Yeah.
start? Okay, okay. So what was the parenting style like before you knew about peaceful parenting?
I was the very traditional type of Asian mom. And because here in Singapore, this term tiger parenting is very
Mm.
prevalent. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
means that it's more like you're always on top of what your child is doing and you're
Mm.
very strict. It's kind of like for us Filipinos, diba, we want to always encourage our children to, oh, kailangan mataas grades mo, you always have
Yeah.
to be on top. And there's a certain kind of pressure that comes with it. And I was a yeller when I
Mm.
started my motherhood journey. I get triggered all the time kasi that was how I was raised. And this is not to say that my parents were bad parents. It's just that that was how they were parented also. They grew up in an environment where yelling and punishments, physical punishments, were a norm. So when I became a mom, I thought that it was normal for me to do. And syempre, I would do exactly what they did previously kasi yun yung nakagisnan ko as a child.
Mhm.
So when I started becoming a parent, I was yelling all the time, and it came to a point na I saw how scared my kids were becoming of me, and I started
Wow,
thinking back to my
scared.
childhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And parang every time I would open my mouth, they were like wincing kasi parang,
Mm,
is mom gonna get angry? Is she gonna yell? So
mm,
that's when I started thinking, is this what how I want my kids to see me? Do I want them to fear me, or do I want to earn their trust so that I can be a parent who can lead them, who can guide them to be better adults? And what is the lesson that am I teaching them if I'm hurting them?
mm.
Am I telling them na when it's okay for parents to hurt their children? So that's the kind of lesson that I'm instilling in them. And when they grow up, they're going to do the same thing. And it's going to be a cycle. Na when I remembered that I wanted to break as a child. As a child, when my parents um, used physical punishment or when they yelled at me, I always thought na I would do things differently. But I forgot that when I became a parent because I didn't have anyone model it for me. So
Yeah.
I fell back to the old generational pattern of parenting.
Yeah, and and so like this is crucial in knowing also like the patterns that we grew up with, we carry into our adult lives and eventually carry them over into our kids when we, when we raise them, when we have our own. And so could you share with us briefly then, what was, so you mentioned that you were a yeller before finding out about
Mm-hmm.
parenting. So tell us more about your experience growing up in the Filipino household with Filipino parents, with the parents that you had. What was it? How did that influence your primary or initial, behavior in motherhood?
Yeah, because I grew up in a household with where my parents value hard work, syempre, and they always pressured us to always do our best academically. So,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like not only in the Philippines, but in Asian households, we always put a lot of emphasis on academic success.
Yes.
So, yun
Mm-hmm.
yung measure of success natin for somebody if they are going to the
Nice.
best schools, when they get the best jobs, the best paying jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I grew up in that kind of household, and I have two sisters, so I'm the eldest. So pag
More
eldest
pressure.
ka, yes, and
Mhm.
parang laging sinasabi ng parents ko na you have to be a good example to your sisters. So there's even more pressure on you to be a perfect daughter, be a perfect
Mhm.
sister, to be perfect in every way. So mentally, I didn't know that it was hurting me mentally. And
Mm-mm.
I actually just uncovered it when I became a mother myself. So it influenced how I looked at motherhood. And I thought that I had to be self sacrificing as a mother, that I had to choose my children's and husband's needs first before my own.
Yes.
And I felt na, oh, to be the perfect mother, I have to do everything myself. I have to make sure that my house is always clean kahit na I'm working also. And I always have to uh, be the good mom, and my children have to be always well behaved. Kasi yun yung measure of success as a parent in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Kailangan well-disciplined yung kids mo, because if not, then you are a failure as a parent. So,
Mm-mm.
and my parents put a lot of value on what other people are thinking. So I became a people pleaser as well. So
Yeah.
I was very obedient, and not that I detested being an obedient child, but it just felt na it was more of subservience instead of just like I'm blindly following
Yes.
everything.
Mhm.
But I don't blame them, because that's how they are parented to me. So I always put emphasis on the fact na when I talk to my clients, you have to forgive your parents because
Mm.
they didn't know any better. Nobody was there to tell them this. And we are lucky because we are now living in this kind of environment where all the research for brain development for kids and all of these things are now available on the internet. And they didn't have access to this type of information before. And now we have to make good use of it because
Yeah.
we should be the first generation cycle breakers. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I
Mhm.
totally agree with that. Especially like because there's this movement now, right? We're being more self-aware. There's self-help that's more popular than ever. I think it's also because of
Mhm.
the pandemic that helped us kind of look within when we couldn't really go out. So
Yeah.
we our escape, I guess not really an escape, but then it's like we decided to look into ourselves. Those who were curious enough, at least, and yeah, that definitely sparked a movement for people who are close to our age who want to have a family of their own and to see what could be changed, what cycles could be broken, and realize even that there was a cycle to begin with in the family.
Yeah.
So
And
I
can I
think that's
just
also
add,
core. Yeah, of course. Go
yeah,
ahead.
can I just add that the reason why this peaceful parenting is gaining so much traction now everywhere is because the world is hurting and stress and anxiety is skyrocketing. And it's not just because of the pandemic. I think now we realize that we are in a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
There is a variety of social, emotional, political, racial, and other issues that are affecting our collective lack of well being. So now
Yes.
we're starting to realize that. So that's why these peaceful parenting is now gaining so much traction and popularity.
So tell me now then, how did you come across peaceful parenting? You said you mentioned that you when your kids, like when you were still yelling at them, you started to realize like they would like wince, or they would have like this reaction before you even
Mhm.
would yell, that would anticipate like them being afraid of you. So
Yeah.
how did you eventually find your way into peaceful parenting from there?
So even before the pandemic, I was like trying to research for ways on how to parent differently. So I came across this book called Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids by Dr. Laura Markham. So
Mm,
I recommend this to everyone all the time when they ask me what books would they should be starting off with, and this is one of them. And during the pandemic, I felt that it helped me a lot because it helped me realize that these are things that I wanted to do. I wanted to parent with empathy and compassion because I want my kids to grow up with empathy and compassion. And that's the only way they can learn it if I model it for them. Because if
yeah.
they don't see me doing it, they won't learn it. Because they learn more from seeing us do things
Mm-hmm.
rather than just hearing it from us. And most of the time, I find na ang dami kong sinabi sa mga kids ko, but the thing that they remember the most is what I've been doing most that they see all the time. So
Yeah.
that's how I got started. And then after that, I took some parenting courses, and then um, a lot of my friends who are married and with kids started asking me for advice. And so I thought na I have all this knowledge. Why don't I share it with more people? So I started to train to become a coach, and I got my certification from Jai Institute of Parenting. So it all started from there. And until now, I've been trying to reach out with my community to be able to spread the word even more. Because here in Singapore, the percentage of youth suicide, is really starting to go up. And I
Mm,
feel like in order to mitigate this, we have to start with the parents. We have to empower them with the skills and with the knowledge so that they can guide their kids even more, and they know what to look out for and how to look out for their children. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and so in terms of so after you discovered like peaceful parenting, like how can you describe what peaceful parenting is then? Like if someone had just like met you and then you say, "Oh, I'm a peaceful parenting coach." What would you usually tell them?
Usually, when I tell them that I'm a peaceful parenting coach, the reaction would be, "What is a peaceful parenting coach?" So,
Mm,
peaceful parenting itself is a form of positive parenting. So it's the same as mindful parenting, conscious parenting, respectful
okay.
parenting. It's all the same. It's just that with peaceful parenting, it's more of um, a mindset because we are committed to being good parents, but we know that we cannot be perfect parents all the time. And the first step is to recognize that there are instances where we will make mistakes, that
Mm-hmm.
we will go back to our previous habits of the way we parent our kids, with yelling, punishing, and all these things. But the
Mm-hmm.
important thing is now we are equipped with the tools that we need to repair. The most important part is repairing the ruptured relationship with our children. And
Yeah.
peaceful parenting focuses on connection so that your children will collaborate with you, cooperate with you, rather than just obeying blindly. Because we
Mm-mm.
want to raise children who are resilient, who are the future leaders, who will stand up for themselves, who knows what their boundaries are emotionally, physically, and who are mentally healthy as well. Kasi when we parent peacefully, it's not just about equipping our children, we are also equipping ourselves. And it's also going back to our past parenting um, experiences with our own parents and reparenting ourselves, earning that secure attachment so that we can have that secure attachment with our children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I mean, but so it's a very it's a very niche coaching field, but it's also so prevalent right now because as adults we still are kids to our parents. We all
Mhm.
have different upbringing. We all have our own experiences that we carry into, even if we're not parents yet, even into our adult relationship. So that really does influence everything that we do in our and react to in our adult life. And so what would you say though in terms of Filipino upbringing, or being raised in a Filipino household? What would be the common practices or parenting styles that you've observed as a coach with your clients?
So with my clients, usually the Filipino clients, I would observe that they have this power over dynamic with their children, most of them. Kasi they always hold this power na I am the parent, you are just a child.
Mm-hmm.
And have you experienced the same with your family?
Yeah, I mean, like it's almost the same with you. Like there's blind obedience that if you cross over the line, then you will be a bad kid, basically,
Yeah.
right? Or that was
So
the notion, at least.
And also, I always come across issues like with because the parents are always telling the children what they need to do. In the end, they grow up to be people pleasers. So when they become parents as well, they always look to what will society be, how will society be looking at them as parents. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always like the common thing that I always hear from is ano na lang sasabihin ng kamag-anak ko if they know that I'm actually engaging a coach? That is it are they going to think that I'm a failure as a parent? And it
Mm.
has nothing to do with that. Engaging a coach has nothing to do with the fact that you're a failure. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, if you are engaging a coach, it means that you are ready to grow as a
Mm-hmm.
parent. And it speaks so much about you because you are ready to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And you are not hindi ka nahihinder ng what other people would think of you. And so I always encourage my clients to look into themselves. why is this triggering to you? And it always goes back to an experience in their childhood. Now, when they were young, they always need to know what their parents are thinking of, kung ano, if okay lang ba sa parents nila na ganito. So they always
Yeah.
defer to their parents. And so yun yung common things that I encounter with Filipino clients. But um, one thing that stood out for me is yung I had this one client that she's actually my friend. She's been my childhood friend, and she had confidence issues as a child when we were children, and she would always refer to her parents. And when she engaged me in my coach for my coaching services, at the end of our session, I was so proud of her because she was able to gain the confidence that she needed in order to be a very confident parent to her daughter. So there was a situation when they went overseas and she was sharing with me. Now one of the family members commented na, ang suplada ng anak mo. She doesn't kiss me. And one of the things that peaceful parenting teaches is boundaries.
Yeah.
So with
Hmm.
her child, she also always tells her child na, do you feel comfortable giving your uncle or your auntie a kiss? If
Hmm.
not, you can always just say hello. So sa atin kasi in the Philippines, magmano ka sa tito mo or kiss tita
Magbeso.
or whatever,
Oo.
yeah. And
Yeah.
we are always forced to do that kasi pag hindi, we are being disrespectful.
Hmm.
So she was able to stand up for her child and she was able to say no, no, because I'm teaching her boundaries. That's why. And if she's uncomfortable to do it, then it's okay. We don't have to force her because this is teaching her in the future when she goes out into the real world and she dates somebody and this somebody tells her na I want to kiss you. And
Mm.
she can hold that boundary because you have taught her na no means no.
Yeah.
And I have a say who can kiss me or who can touch me or who can do whatever.
Hmm.
Diba? So, yeah. So, those are the things that I have encountered so far in the Filipino household.
Yeah, it's a good it's so foreign, no? Like to think na, that kids can set boundaries too for
Mm-hmm.
themselves, but it has to be the parent or a caregiver who actually gives them the agency to have that boundary or to set that boundary for themselves. And I love that it kind of gives them some kind of independence in that way, no? Na parang you don't have to keep doing the same old thing that we were raised into doing, but like, kids have their own like interests. They like what they don't like, what they're comfortable in, what they're not. So it's like it's really interesting to honor that now, but also it's important because it also helps them as they grow older. And so
Mm-hmm.
are there some similar themes though in parenting practices with clients from if you have any clients from other cultures, um do they differ?
Actually, the similarities comes um, with I think dads are particularly very traditional. I think in no matter what race or whatever culture they come from, dads are normally the more traditional type of parent. So they parent with that sense of power over dynamic. And
Mm, mhm.
moms are I always encounter most of my clients are mothers. So they would be the ones who are like, I want to be a more empathetic parent, and my husband would always say na, but if you don't punish them, how are they gonna learn? How
Mm,
are they gonna be successful? How are they gonna know that they made a mistake? But the thing with punishments is they only are effective at the moment, but they don't really teach the lesson to the children. Because I remember when I was younger, when I got punished, I'm not thinking about what do I learn from this experience. I was
yeah.
thinking about my anger. Why am
Mhm.
I being punished? Why is privilege being taken away from me?
Yeah. Yeah, we
That's
sit
why,
with that emotion instead of like
yes,
actually, except instead of being guided na parang, okay, what can we do better
yeah.
next
And
time?
that's why I always tell my clients na punishment is not always the way. It's better to go with natural consequences. And I always give this example. Now, for example, your child is not doing their homework, or they forget to do their homework, and they
Mm.
fail for that certain subject. The traditional way of parenting would say na, I will take away your privileges. So no
Mm.
iPad, no TV, or no whatever. So that is the
Yeah.
traditional way of punishing. But what are you really teaching your child? Are you really helping your child? Because so what if you take away the privileges? Does it guarantee that they're going to do their homework, that they're going to pass that particular subject? What
Yeah.
if the problem is not those gadgets? The problem lies deeper than that. What
Mm-hmm.
if the child has learning disabilities, or they just find na this particular subject is hard for them, and they
Yeah.
actually need guidance in the tutor. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
addressing the situation, you're just trying to put a band-aid on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really addressing what the problem is. Tapos yung child mo, instead of learning from it, from that experience, they grow to resent you because you're not helping them,
Yeah.
right? So yun. That's what I always
Yeah.
um mm,
Because
tell. And
isn't it also interesting that parang I think one of the popular lines is like if we do something wrong before we they tell us to go to our room or sit in a corner, think about what you did. Okay, I'm
yeah,
thinking about what I did. What now? What's next?
yeah, and when you tell your child that think about what you did, and because a child's brain is not developed yet,
Mm-hmm.
so and surprisingly, this is one tidbit that really changed the way I see my kids. That their prefrontal cortex, the one that is in charge of the executive function, the reasoning, all these kind of things, the decision making, impulse control, is not yet developed, and it fully
Mm-hmm.
matures only at age 25.
Yeah.
So to think na, oh, think about what you did. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
For a child, so yeah, I thought about what I did, pero what was wrong with what I did?
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be a discussions. That's why with peaceful parenting, we don't usually use time out. We call it
Mm-mm.
time in. Time in is because you do give your child the space to reflect, but you reflect together with your child. Hindi yung iiwan mo siya na in one corner
Yes.
and then to think about what they did. How are they gonna think about it when they don't even understand the gravity
Mm-mm.
of what they have done?
Yeah, like there's no
Mhm.
guidance, and so the timing is kind of like a check-in with them, na parang, to assess what happened, why they like
Mhm.
what they did wrong, how they can be better, or what could they have done instead, in
Yes.
some way, and ask questions as to like what you said. If it's like if they're not doing their homework, then ask deeper questions. Be more curious about your child.
Yeah.
There could be something
And
there.
trying to get to the root of it, like,
Mm-mm.
what do you feel about this subject? And
Mm-mm.
what what is hard for you? Why do you think it's hard for you? And how can I help you make it
Yeah.
better? So
Yeah.
those are the things that we can ask our child instead of just, oh, I'll take away your privileges kasi you're not studying. You failed your exams. You didn't pass your homework.
Mm-mm.
So at least they learn to problem solve as well. And that's an important skill because when they get into the real world, when they work, problem solving is one of the skills that they should be having. They should be able to think of how to solve particular issues at work, in life, in everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it teaches them how to be more self-sufficient also in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that because I think if we are, if we are just blamed for something that we did like growing up as an adult, at least I think in my experience, na we kind of have negative self-talk about ourselves. Oh,
Mhm.
we did this kasi, ikaw kasi, hindi ka nag-iisip eh. Di ba? Like, there's like negative self-talk. When instead, if I feel if it were in a more curious, mindset for the parent, like what's really causing your child to act in a certain way, then they learn how to kind of assess situations more clearly also and make it more about the situation and less about
Mhm.
themselves. So,
Yeah, because even for us adults, it's also the same, right? We don't like to be blamed or shamed for the mistakes that
yeah.
we've done. And we would rather someone show us the correct way to do it than having someone, oh, ikaw kasi ganyan, ganyan, ganyan.
Hmm.
Parang it doesn't really build the child's confidence as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so conscious parenting, like how I'm hearing it, it's more of it's really just being curious about
Mhm.
your child. And so that I think it's also nice to have a curious parent for a child, because at least that child feels like there's someone on their team, someone in their court, diba? Na parang they're feeling supported even if it's
Mhm.
a mistake that they did. Parang hindi aalis yung parent, hindi sila iiwanan.
Yeah, and it's also very important for when they reach their teens. Kasi 'di ba, when you're have you experienced being a teenager and thinking na my parents are not on my side. They're always trying to
Mhm.
restrict my all the things that I want.
Yeah, or
Right?
like I don't tell them na parang I failed the quiz or something. You start to
Mhm.
hide things from them eventually because you know how they're gonna
Yeah.
react. Uh-uh.
Yeah, and it carries on to when you become a teenager, then when you become an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to have that kind of relationship with your children. You want to be able to trust your children and to earn their trust as well. So if you resort to punishments all the time, then you're not earning their trust and you're not making a deeper connection with them. So when you have established a good connection with your child and you have built that trust with them, it goes on even when they are in their teens. So they won't hide anything from you, di ba? Kasi they feel like they can always talk to you about anything. And they won't be afraid na you will always criticize them or you will punish them.
Mm-mm. And so, like, one of the goals that that we've mentioned, like in the introduction, is that your mission is
Mhm.
to help build trusting relationships between parents and their kids. So, what are some of the ways that trust can be severed or underdeveloped between parent and child? So we've already discussed the whole punishment system. What
Mhm.
else are some of the ways? I guess criticizing also. And what else are some
Mhm.
of the ways that trust can be severed or underdeveloped between parent and child?
I think the most important thing is not modeling what you are teaching your child. Like, for example, you always tell your child, you have to be compassionate, you have to be kind, you have to be respectful. But when you're not respecting your child, when you're not respecting their opinions or what they have to say, their needs, you're not taking care of them, then you're not walking the talk with us. So when they see that, they'll think, na, huh, why are you not even doing it?
Mm-mm.
So why are you expecting me to do it? And so that creates a separation, a disconnect between the parent and child. And
Mm-mm.
another thing would be when sometimes we as parents, pag we are experiencing anger towards our spouse or whatever, when we talk about our relationship with our spouse to our children, it
Mm-hmm.
also kind of create that disconnection because they will think na, why are you talking about daddy or mommy about that, about about her in that way? Parang it also in their mind, the back of their mind, they are thinking na if my parent can talk about my dad this way, then how are they gonna talk about me to another person? So
Yeah,
it's a trust issue again. So
for sure.
mhm,
So they don't feel safe in that
yeah.
environment to want to open
Mhm,
up, to want to share a part of themselves because they don't know
mhm,
if they if it's going to stay between the two of them lang.
yeah. And yeah, you mentioned safety, yeah, and one of the fundamental needs of a human being is the feeling of safety, emotionally, physically, and mentally. So if you don't provide that for your children, essentially you won't have any relationship with your child because they don't feel safe being with you, and you're supposed to be their safe harbor because you're their parent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like it's really it's very interesting. It's like parenting has become more of a challenge, but in a good way, because it's like
Mhm.
we are really questioning, the way that we were brought up, and we're questioning how we can be better caregivers to,
Mhm.
the little people that we're gonna bring into this world, diba? Or the little people we're trying to raise. So
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful that it's becoming more popular. But also, and it's lucky for the young generation that's just coming into the world, diba? Because they're
Mhm.
more conscious and they're more peaceful parents now. But what about us as adults? Because technically we are still, kids in our parents'
Mhm.
eyes in some way or other. So is it possible for a parent and child, adult parent and child, to repair their relationship now, when, after the fact of, like, how they were raised growing up?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question because I get asked that all the time. And I've witnessed this with one of my classmates from JAI, from my certification class.
Mm.
And my classmate had an adult daughter, and they were able to repair the relationship because no matter how old your child is still going to need you as a parent.
Mm.
And repair what I've been talking about repair, and repair is definitely one of the things that we learned during our certification, and it is something that I always tell my clients as well. Na repair is very important because for us traditional parenting, when we experience traditional parenting, parents normally don't apologize to their children. And
Yes.
when you hear your own parent apologize to you for all the things that they have done in the past, for their past mistakes, parang napaka-uplifting kasi nun as an adult child.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing your parent say sorry to you, to apologize for all those things,
Yeah.
parang it automatically repairs the relationship. Kasi you're acknowledging your mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And your child, that's the only thing that they want to hear from you. Na they just want to feel na you apologized for something. That's the
Mm-hmm.
only thing. Because even in other relationships, not only in parenting, when somebody apologizes to you, it automatically just repairs the relationship. Kasi
Yeah.
parang you are taking responsibility for your past actions and you are committing to being a better person. So by doing that, you are also committing to be a better parent and to being there for your child kahit na adult na sila, diba?
Yeah, yeah, and it's a very powerful thing, say hearing "I'm sorry," and hearing it,
Mhm.
and then like seeing the genuine, expression on their face also when it happens, because
Mhm.
and sometimes it might be even difficult to hear, no, because it's just like, um because of maybe depending on like how a person was raised, to hear "I'm
Mhm.
sorry," how simple and brief two words are, but they can really dig a hole and just really make you feel so many things again, as if you were a child again.
Mhm.
Diba? So it's
Yeah.
like, it's something that many, many of us, I guess, in our generation,
Mhm.
um, wonder if it'll ever happen, if it'll ever come out, if you'll ever hear it.
Yeah.
Also, I'm proud of you, diba? Like that's
Mhm.
also
Yes.
another line that a lot of people don't really hear a lot from their parents. So parents,
Mhm.
if you guys are listening right now, just
Yeah. Especially in the Filipino setting. Kasi like for example, um, you just came home from school and after an exam and you showed your your parents na you got 98 out of 100. The
Oh my,
first thing that your
oh my
your
God.
parent in a Filipino setting would say that, "Ah, bakit 98 lang?"
98 lang? Oh my God.
Exact, di ba?
Black.
Parang as a
Oh my
child,
goodness.
parang, huh? Got two mistakes only, right? Isn't that good?
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So every time I always, I'm very mindful of how I react to my children, especially because one of my kids, um, they're taking up Chinese, they're taking up Mandarin, so as their mother tongue. So in school, they have to learn one mother tongue language, and because they're Chinese, they have to learn Chinese.
Mm-mm.
So one of them is not doing very well in Chinese, so it's just like passing lang.
Mm-mm.
So when he comes home, I try to encourage him and tell him na, oh, you passed your exam. Do you think next time, how would you feel next time when you get your exams? When you do your exams, do you think you'll do better? Do you think there is any room for improvement? Then he would think and he would, yeah, probably. I think I need to get a higher score. I want to challenge myself.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, you're not pressuring them, and it's coming from them. They want to do better. You're not telling
Right.
them, na, oh, you only got a passing score. Ah. So next time you have to be like this, and like this. And I always ask them, are you happy with your score? How does it make you feel? So they have to look into themselves and see that, does it make me feel happy? And if it
Mm-mm.
doesn't, then if I'm not satisfied with my grade, then what should I do about it?
Mm-mm.
Rather than me telling them, I'm not satisfied with your grade. You
Yeah.
should do better. Yeah.
Yeah, kasi saying na parang bakit 98 lang when it would feel like, as in like how I'm reflecting on it also in my childhood.
Hmm.
It's like if you hear the words like 98 lang, or like you dapat 100 yan or something, it
Mhm.
kind of neglects the hard work that you put in studying.
Yes.
Diba? It's like you
Mm.
don't feel seen in the effort that you made behind the scenes.
That's true.
So,
And especially if the subject is like math and which is really
oh my
hard.
god.
Tapos, they tell you, ha, bakit 98 lang? Parang, you
Yeah.
know how hard math is.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So it's really important for, for parents to make sure that their kids are seen, whether they're doing good or bad, and it's like just
Mhm.
something, and to know that they're on your side, and like that you are supportive of them and how they can improve if they want to improve, or like if they feel good about, something that they've done, and then you're there to support that too. So I want to know, like, in what you've learned in peaceful parenting, has there ever been have you ever come across maybe readings or books that talked about maybe certain cultures in the world who have probably like already have a model of peaceful parenting, but isn't, they probably, it's not even term peaceful parenting on their part, but
Yeah.
it has a good bearing of it.
I always come across it's not from a book, but in when I search the internet, I always come across Danish way of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I always hear na the Danes, they have it all figured out. Parang they have peaceful parenting, but it's not even called peaceful parenting for them. Parang it's their normal way of parenting. So they look to their children and they parent their children with empathy and compassion and with connection rather
Mm.
than resort to punishment and yelling and other things that disconnect you with your kids. So so far they are the ones
It's
that
the
I have
only one.
yes.
Well, I
Kasi
mean, at least they're doing
most
something right. Yeah.
yeah.
So, and so yeah, and that's something. At least there is like a model in that sense in the world, no, and that it's not impossible to have to be able to what's that, cultivate that into a culture. So,
Mhm.
now though, what does it mean? What does it mean to have a more empathic and compassionate approach to parenting? What would that look like? And what would that look like in the eyes of kids? So it's like, because again, like, kids, they'll pattern what it is that they see in the household, like the behaviors and everything, and maybe some words that parents will use from time to time. But in the eyes of kids, like, how should they feel, or what are some things that should be done so that parents can support them more and make them feel safe and heard, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So the first thing would be to honor our child's development and to always make realistic expectations. Kasi we always the reason why we get triggered so much when our children behave a certain way is because we expect so much from them. We expect them to be mini adults, which is something that they can't do because their brains are not yet developed. And so
Hmm.
for children to feel safe, seen and heard, you have to make sure that the parents are in tune with their needs, that they respond to their children's needs, that they will be curious instead of just criticizing or getting angry at their children, asking those questions and finding out the root cause of the behavior
Hmm.
to make it a safe space for them. Because essentially, as human beings, those are the emotional needs that we have to be seen, heard, and understood. And when we have all those, we feel safe in our environment and we feel safe with the people around us.
Yeah. So hopefully, parents who are listening, you might be starting to be curious about the way that you are raising your kids, or how you want to raise them better as well. Peaceful coaching or conscious parenting, peaceful coaching, peaceful parenting, conscious parenting, whatever it is, it's about similar anyway.
Mhm.
This is a wonderful way to break the cycle, as mentioned earlier, in the way that we were brought up. If you had a different upbringing as well and would like to change that in the family that you bring into this world. So, what are some
Mhm.
of the resources then? You mentioned one book earlier, and you can repeat that as well. Resources that parents can read so that they can be directed in a more holistic approach when it comes to raising their kids.
Okay, so the first book would be The Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids by Dr. Laura Markham. And she also has one more book, Peaceful Parents, Happy Siblings. And
Mm,
then there is also one book, The Power of Showing Up by Dr. Daniel J. Siegel and
mm,
Payne Bryson. And there is one book about nonviolent communication as well, because that model of communication is one that we use in peaceful parenting. We learn how to communicate non-violently to our children, and not only to our children, but to our spouses as well. So it's by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. Um, and so those are some of the books that you can start with. Um, and those are the books that will help you also with being more in tune with your um, body sensations, with your emotions, with your
mhm.
triggers, and be able to help you self regulate. And because if you know how to self regulate, then you're modeling it to your children, and your children
Yes.
will be able to learn it.
Yeah. And I love that. I think that's an important key, I think, to become a more peaceful parent or a conscious parent. It's like you have to be aware of the things that trigger you. And, being in a family, even, being in a partnership with your husband or your wife or just your partner, like they will trigger you, and for you to know all of those things, whatever activates you, and that you can kind of soothe your way out of being more reactive, like that's something that is going to be so beneficial in fostering a much deeper connection with your partner or with your kids too. So yeah, it's just it's so wonderful. Like I love talking about these things, Jamie. It's just it's very, because it's not something that we grew up learning the best. So like,
Yeah.
these things, it's very refreshing. Kind of like it's almost like it's almost like an ice bath, but then at the
Mm,
same time it's like a good kind of jolt to the system. things
Yeah,
need.
and it doesn't only appeal to parents, because I'm sure you also can relate to some of the things that we have talked about, like
Yeah,
the parenting backgrounds, and it gives you like an idea of how you want to be a parent to your children in
right.
the future. Mm.
Yeah. And so, do you conduct, or do you conduct any like workshops, or do you just do like one-on-ones right now for coaching, for being a peaceful parenting coach?
I do conduct workshops. There are times that I would do free master classes. And so usually I will announce it on my Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have coaching, one to one coaching sessions. And maybe later this year, I will be announcing a new program for parents. So it's going to be, because my usual one-to-one coaching is a 12-week program. So this is going to be an 8-week program, and I will have like those online courses as well, and probably opening doors for group coaching.
All right, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Why don't you also plug in your socials, or like if you have a website that they can go to and check out, so that they can find out more about what you offer, and so that parents now and parents to be can also can start to become like better parents to their kids.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Mrs. Jaymie dot Wong, Wong. And I also have my website, but currently I'm still trying to tidy it up, because it
Mhm.
used to be a blog, and then now I'm trying to convert it to my peaceful parenting site. So it's my www.mymomdiaries, then diaries.com. So you can learn a lot of things there, and just follow me on Instagram, and I'm always sharing a lot of parenting tips. And you can always drop me a message also if there are any questions that you want to ask me with regard to my coaching.
Yeah, I love that, and I hope that people reach out, because it is much needed, and it's also time. It's time to break some cycles in our life. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jamie, for joining me this evening and teaching us about peaceful parenting coaching. It's been so wonderful. And I hope the monsters who have tuned in also have learned a thing or two also. If they're a parent, or if they're considering to be a parent, or even if they just want to be a good ninang or ninong
Mhm.
to their
Yeah.
content, it's applicable too, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, we are ending the show already. So if you guys want to contact Jamie over here, it's Mrs. Jaymie Wong for her Instagram handle. So you can ask her questions over there. And if you want to schedule one-on-one consults with her as well. So that is it for Heard on Thursdays. Thank you for tuning in. And it is already 12:15 in the morning. So I hope you guys are, if you're on the road, drive safely. If you're at home and listening, I appreciate it. But also, I hope you guys get some sleep eventually as well. So that is it for Heard on Thursdays. And next week, we'll have another guest for sure. An exciting one, I'm pretty sure. So keep it locked right here on the Monster. Bye.